say about 10 or 12 things. What is America anymore? Seems to be a lot of disagreements about what's going on in America today. And a lot of it has to do with what we think America is now and what it's going to be in the future. The people on the right and the people on the left seem to be in complete almost battle with each other, like different tribes, as they like to say. And I wanted to give my 2 cents on this. Not that I'm always right about everything, but I tell you where I'm coming from anyway. People in the United States of America, I do believe, have always relied on the land itself to pull them through in many cases. And I have this argument with other people on the right who say, oh, America isn't about the land, it's about the system. And I think it's a little bit of both. We have a great piece of real estate. And if when the United States first started and the families went out and pioneered the land and built family farms, which was Thomas Jefferson's vision for America, to have a bunch of small farms spread all over the place. If those crops had failed or continually failed or not been able to yield like they had, the United States would not have been as successful as it is. But it is really a great piece of land, a great piece of real estate. The whole United States, there were very productive farms and very well-fed people that built the United States of America and made it strong. So part of what America is the land. Another part of it is the system of government that we put together and the liberties and the freedoms that people have in the United States, of course. Those are things that, we can argue about this all the time, as I see it. Well, let's see. For example, as I zoom in on myself, for example, what the right wing likes to say, and I've heard a lot of this going on, is they like to say this is not a democracy, this is a republic. See, there's a disagreement. It's both. If I looked it up in the dictionary, and I looked up republic, because I was a little unsure what a republic was, and it said in the dictionary that a republic was a democratic form of government. So what we're doing is we're going around in circles, chasing our tails here, saying, oh, it's not a democracy, it's a republic. I guess the definition that they give to republic is that it's a system of laws, not of people. They want to say, as they're talking about a republic, that if the people all voted on everything and made decisions as a majority, then there would be a threat to a lot of the minorities and the private properties and so forth of the people. In other words, for example, I think Switzerland is a more democratic country than the United States. The United States puts in a system of laws, and all those laws are supposedly applied equally across the board to all the people. And by having laws in place first, and then that they call a republic. Everybody lives under the law. But think about this. Who put those laws in place? They were democratically elected representatives. So the whole thing is circular thinking. I mean, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. Well, we're a democratic republic. And if you look it up in the dictionary, republic just means democracy. It means a democratic form of government. The idea, of course, that they're trying to promote is that they don't want the little guy to have much of an ability to make the government take away other people's possessions and redistribute them. That's what they're afraid of. That's kind of what what the Republicans all stand for. They believe that large corporations should be in charge and should be protected. And they feel that the large corporations and the wealthy should be mostly in charge. They have a feeling that the wealthy people are more special and more privileged and should have more rights. Well, that's kind of what we fought against when we fought the Revolutionary War. You know, if you read Common Sense by Thomas Paine, he talks about how the aristocracy and the monarchy have too much control and too much of the assets. So, well, let me just say this. What we're arguing about in all these cases is what is the proper role of government. It's not just whether or not it's a democracy. I know they're trying to say that it's not a democracy, which is just their propaganda trying to lead the people, the majority, down the wrong road. But what it is that they want to argue about the proper role of government. And I think when they started the United States, there was a little bit of a debate about what is the proper role of government. And the first thing they did is they put together the Articles of Confederation back in around 1776. And they ran that for about, 13 years. And they decided that it wasn't working out. So they sat down and they wrote the Constitution of the United States, which at the beginning of the Constitution, they directly came out and described what is the proper role of government. That is the preamble of the Constitution, which, if I can remember how it goes, it says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, provide for the common defense, ensure domestic tranquility, promote the general welfare, hereby establish," or it says, establish and ordain this Constitution. And also says, to ensure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. It says, we ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. So look at the things that they say there. They say, first of all, they want a more perfect union. Well, that's a direct response to the fact that the Articles of Confederation didn't have a very perfect union. There were problems that they ran into, such as each state would print their own money, and none of the states would be able to have a very powerful money. And there was tariffs between states, and England was attempting to draw some of the states away to try to break us up. So what they did is they said we needed a more perfect union. So they established one currency, one tax structure federally, one giant military, they say provide for the common defense. They established justice, which means that a lot of times the different states had laws that they passed that other states wouldn't follow, or if a criminal ran into another state, it was hard to deport him back into the original state, that kind of stuff. It also talks about something that the Republicans don't believe in. That's right there described in the preamble, and that is promote the general welfare. And what that means is that you have to help the whole country to have good welfare along the whole way, which is things like building bridges and railroads and roads and canals and power plants and so forth. And also making sure that if there's a major economic disaster, it's the responsibility of the government to step in and promote the general welfare. Well, it seems to me that the Republicans kind of didn't read that part of the Constitution, and that's where this fight is going on right now. And this fight has been going on ever since, because at the beginning of the revolution, at that time, guys like Paine and Ethan Allen and so forth, they were kind of socialists in a way. Then there was, coincidentally, at the 1776, Adam Smith wrote Wealth of Nations over in Scotland. And you would swear that that was in the Constitution. When you listen to some of these other people describe America, they say one of the pillars of the United States is free enterprise. Well, it wasn't at the beginning. They didn't describe that. They wanted free enterprise, but my argument is that there's free enterprise all the time anyway. And how much the government is involved in the free enterprise and in the economic system is always a matter of political argument. And it's gone that way. I can go early in the government when Alexander Hamilton wanted to set up the Treasury. There was some argument that that wasn't the proper role of government. He set up the Treasury. And Thomas Jefferson didn't want the government to have the right to purchase things on a large scale. Then he turned around and changed his mind and did the Louisiana Purchase. And then Andrew Jackson wanted to set up the National Bank. And there was a big argument then about that. And you know, under one of the underlying cores of the Civil War and slavery was how much should the government be involved in controlling the economic system. Because when they passed the Missouri Compromise, you know, that was an idea that every time they added a southern state that had slaves, they were going to add a northern state that didn't have slaves to balance it out. Well, what ended up happening, the northern states, the people who owned farms and family farms and so forth, could not compete with the free labor that the slaves had. And that was part of the reason that the North opposed slavery, is because economically it was impossible to compete with what was almost free labor. You know, then there was, after the Civil War, there was what they call the Golden Age, or it depends, the robber baron age, depends what side you're on, in which people did not have minimum wage. There was child labor. There was the ability to, if someone was injured, you just throw them out of the factory. And then the rise of the Union came along after the Civil War all the way to World War II. And throughout most of that time, the corporations had the advantage. But eventually what happened, the unions got together, and when they had the Great Depression especially, they got Franklin Roosevelt put in there. Then the workers got the advantage. And then all the way up until about World War II, and World War II kind of brought an end to the Depression, and the unions were then in power, and there was a great increase in the standard of living for the average man between the time of World War II to about 1980. And then it went back to the Republicans again. They started saying, no, unions are bad and corporations need all the money, and we got to cut taxes on the wealthy and deregulate. And that's kind of where we've been up and down a little bit since then. And this is always the battle that occurs in the United States. One of the battles that occurs in the United States is, what is the proper role of government? How much should government get involved in helping the working people and holding the corporations to a standard? And we're right now still in that battle. And right now, the corporations really have most of the control. It's almost back to where we were at the time of the Revolution, when they had an aristocracy which owned everything and could do anything they wanted. We're right now not quite to that point, but we're in an oligarchy now, where the corporations own about 80% of the assets and about 1% of the hands. So everything's constantly being a battle. I think we need to go back in the other direction, personally. I think we have to. I'm not saying that we should have complete socialism or complete communism, but I think it's gone too far back to the side of the wealthy.